I was sitting in a coffee shop yesterday watching a guy film content for his personal brand. He was incredibly intense about it, tripod set up on the latte table, speaking with this passionate, almost aggressive conviction. He was looking into the lens and telling his followers to escape the matrix, to think for themselves and to stop being sheep. To him, he was the ultimate rebel, a unique voice of rugged individualism, finally speaking the hard truths. But then, out of curiosity, I opened my own social feed while he was still filming. Within 30 seconds, I scrolled past 3 other videos, and that's when the weirdness hit me. Every single one of them was using the exact same cadence, the same specific hand-chop gestures to emphasize points. They were even using the same trending audio track in the background. The guy in front of me, who was so convinced he was breaking the mold, was actually performing a script he didn't even know he was reading. It wasn't that he was plagiarizing on purpose, it was something spookier. It was this eerie sense of digital déjà vu. He thought he was expressing his unique soul, but the invisible architecture of the internet had already decided exactly what his rebellion should look like, sound like, and even feel like. And it made me wonder, are we actually thinking our own thoughts, or are we just riding a wave we can't even see?
That's the perfect way to frame it. That feeling, that digital déjà vu.
It's everywhere, isn't it?
It really is. And that's exactly what we need to unravel today. We're going to dive into that invisible architecture, the operating system that's running in the background of our digital lives.
So our mission for this deep dive is, well, it's a big one. We want to understand how this world that promised us cooperation and, endless self-expression.
Right. The great promise.
How it's actually built on a foundation of highly engineered competition and imitation. We're going to unpack this core theory that explains it all, mimetic desire, and see how algorithms are just ruthlessly exploiting this very human thing.
And not just exploiting it, but using it to create value, to drive engagement, and kind of alarmingly, to speed up social fragmentation.
It's all about seeing that invisible script that we don't even know we're reading.
To even begin to understand this, we have to start with the human element, specifically the work of the French philosopher René Girard.
Right, his theory of mimetic desire. It's kind of the master key to unlocking all of this, isn't it?
It absolutely is, because the fundamental idea is that our desires are not our own. They don't just spring up out of nowhere.
So I don't just wake up one morning and decide I absolutely need a certain pair of sneakers.
Exactly. Girard would say your desire for those sneakers isn't really about the sneakers at all. It's always triangular. It's mediated.
Triangular, meaning there's me, the sneakers, and what's the third point?
The third point is the other person, the model, the influencer, the friend, the celebrity, the person who shows you that those sneakers are desirable in the first place. You don't desire things. You desire what other people desire.
So we're all just copying each other's desires, fundamentally.
We are. This drive to imitate what Girard calls mimesis is just foundational to being human. And it's not inherently good or bad. It just is. It has 2 faces.
Okay, so what's the first face? The positive one, I'm guessing.
The positive one is cooperation and learning. I mean, think about how any of us learn to do anything. How a child learns to talk.
You copy your parents. You imitate sounds until they become words.
Precisely. Or an apprentice learning a craft. It's all copying. The sources we looked at even bring in the neuroscience behind this, talking about mirror neurons.
Ah, right. The idea that when I watch you do something, my brain fires in the same way as if I were doing it myself.
Yes, exactly. And that shared neurological experience creates what some scholars call a recentered room. It's this shared space of understanding and action that allows for society to exist. It's the basis for all learning, all culture.
The sources use this heavy term for it. Biopolitical production.
They do. It sounds academic, but the idea is simple. Before any company can make money off a platform, people have to first engage in the free, cooperative act of creating social life.
So when you share a useful link, or teach someone a skill in the video, or just have a constructive conversation,
you're participating in biopolitical production. You're creating a common good. You're building the social fabric. And this process, this natural human tendency to share and cooperate, it precedes capital control.
So we collectively build the house for free out of our desire to connect and share.
And then the platform architects come in, put a price on the door, and start charging us rent in the form of our data and attention.
Which is when we meet the second, much darker face of mimesis.
Yes, conflict and rivalry. This happens the moment the object of desire becomes exclusive.
What do you mean by exclusive?
Well, if the object is something like digital information, it's not exclusive. We can both have it. So imitation leads to learning. But if the object is unique, like being the #1 person in a category or a specific social status.
There can only be one winner.
There can only be one. And as soon as that's the case, imitation inevitably turns into rivalry, conflict, and sometimes even violence.
And this leads us straight to the central paradox of the whole digital world.
Yeah.
The idea of digital scarcity.
Right. The promise of the early internet was the end of scarcity. Information could be copied for free, shared infinitely. Unlike a physical loaf of bread, we could all have a copy of a digital song.
The content is abundant. But the platforms immediately created a new artificial form of scarcity, didn't they?
They had to. They created the scarcity of attention. The moment you have an open architecture where everyone can broadcast themselves, the mimetically induced desire for attention just explodes.
So the content becomes worthless, in a sense, because it's everywhere. The only thing that has value is the gaze, the eyeballs on the content.
And that gaze is finite. It is exclusive. It is rivalrous. And the desire to be seen isn't some natural urge we all have. It's generated by watching other people being seen, being celebrated, receiving that scarce attention.
The whole dynamic flips. The attention economy doesn't just host content. It becomes a battlefield.
An absolute battlefield. And it means that this biopolitical production, this creation of knowledge, starts to rely just as much on conflict as it does on cooperation. The rivalry over who gets the spotlight becomes the main event.
And the platforms are built to channel and valorize that rivalry. All the systems, ranking, sorting, linking, they're just organizational tools.
No, they're sophisticated instruments designed to focus our desire on that one scarce commodity. Attention.
And if we really buy into this idea of an immaterial economy where most people aren't getting paid, at least not at first.
Right. The vast majority of users aren't making a dime.
Then the fight isn't over money. It's over status and recognition.
Which makes Girard's triadic structure of desire the absolute engine of the entire system. It is the primary structural driver of everything we see. All the engagement, all the content, all the conflict. It's the ghost in the machine.
And suddenly the guy in the coffee shop makes perfect sense. He's not competing for cash. He's competing for the status of being the most authentic, most rebellious voice. But the very script for that rebellion has already been defined by what the platform rewards with attention.
And that idea of the platform defining the script brings us to this next concept, which is the mimetic machine.
Okay, that sounds pretty ominous. Is that just a metaphor or is it more technical?
It's more technical. It's meant to describe the entire technical assemblage, the infrastructure, the code, the user interfaces, the corporate ownership, all of it.
The whole system.
The whole system. And it's designed, engineered to produce value from our processes of imitation. It's a machine that extracts value from both our cooperation and, more importantly, our competition.
So the platform isn't just a neutral stage for us to perform on. It's actively monetizing the rivalry itself.
It has to. And YouTube is the perfect case study here. I mean, Google buys it for $1.65 billion. The first order of business is profitability.
Enter the YouTube partnership program. The deal is you get enough attention, we'll share some of the ad revenue with you.
Right. But look at the rhetoric versus the reality. The slogan was broadcast yourself.
Which sounds so empowering, autonomous, individual.
But what is the actual user experience for 99.9% of people on the site? You're not broadcasting yourself. You're watching other people broadcast themselves.
You're the spectator. You're positioned to observe the success, the attention, the desire that's being directed at the successful model, the YouTube partner.
And that's the genius of the machine. It generates the desire in the millions of spectators to become the model. It uses the attention paid to the few to fuel the competitive drive of the many.
And to really maximize that drive,
the
participation had to be structured. It had to be competitive.
You saw this so clearly in their early staged contests. Things like YouTube Underground for musicians or Project Direct for filmmakers.
They were metaphors for the whole system, weren't they? They made the underlying logic explicit, established a clear public ranking system, valorized attention above all else.
Exactly. But the real machine isn't in those temporary contests. It's in the permanent infrastructure of the site, the algorithmic and editorial sorting.
The stuff we take for granted. How are those systems creating this constant state of rivalry?
Well, every single video is relentlessly sorted and ranked by quantifiable metrics. View counts, discussion volume, recency, favorites. The front page shows you what's algorithmically most popular right next to editorially featured content.
So for a creator, these lists aren't just for navigation. They're a public report card. They are the measure of your success or your failure, updated in real time.
And this design inevitably creates a very powerful, very steep positive feedback loop.
Popularity begets popularity.
It's as simple as that. If your video starts trending, the algorithm rewards you with more visibility on the front page, which gets you more views, which keeps you trending. It's incredibly difficult for a new piece of content to break through that momentum.
And that's made even harder by the sheer volume of new stuff being uploaded.
It's intensified to an insane degree. Every single clip, the moment it's uploaded, faces what the sources call constantly approaching entropy.
Entropy, meaning it's doomed to be buried.
Think about it. Over 24 hours of video are uploaded every single minute. If you start producing content for even a day, you're falling to the bottom of the list. You're forgotten.
It's a content treadmill. You're running from the existential dread of being invisible.
And the only way to counter that entropy is to constantly, relentlessly produce new content. That pressure is baked into the design of the site.
And the platform even gives you the tools to optimize your performance on that treadmill.
Yes, tools like Insight, which wasn't just a data dashboard, it was an instruction manual for how to win the competition.
What kind of data did it give you?
Everything. Audience demographics, where your views were coming from, but more importantly, it would track popularity peaks. It would show you hot and cold sequences within your own videos.
So it literally tells you people got bored and clicked away at the 1-minute mark, but they really like the part where you did the hand chop.
Exactly. It forces you to adopt this dramaturgical mindset. You're no longer a person expressing yourself. You're a performer scientifically calibrating your performance. The stated goal was to increase your video's view counts and improve your popularity.
The competition is formalized. The performance of your identity becomes part of the machine.
And that's our coffee shop rebel in his natural habitat. He thinks he's a rugged individualist, but he's just reading the data from his Insight dashboard, optimizing his cadence and his gestures to match the script that the algorithm has already proven will score well.
Which I think provides a structural explanation for why discontent and haters are not some unfortunate bug in the system. They're a core feature.
They have to be. The rivalry is so pervasive that these antisocial practices, trolling, hating, are just normalized. It's especially true for any video that gets popular. I mean, learning to deal with haters is now considered a basic skill for online participation.
And if we just write that off as, oh, it's because people are anonymous or it's a problem of scale, we miss the real point.
We miss the structural cause. Mimetic Desire explains it perfectly. Attention is scarce and rivalrous. The platform creates this triangular relationship that inherently leads to conflict. The hater is very often just the unsuccessful imitator, lashing out at the successful model who has the attention they crave.
You can see this play out in the videos people made about the partnership program.
Oh, it's a goldmine. You see two types of content. First, you have the how to succeed videos, which are all about imitation. Do clips on topics that are already popular, upload constantly.
And the second type,
the bitter complaints. Videos from creators who are furious that their clips aren't getting the attention they deserved.
And that sense of grievance is always relative, isn't it? The desire is always aimed just one level up.
Always. If you have 10,000 views, you're angry at the person with 100,000. If you're a partner, you're frustrated, you're not a top-tier partner, the goalposts are always moving.
It's a profound irony then. The very openness of the platform, the promise that anyone can make it.
That's what pours gasoline on the fire. That's what heightens the mimetic rivalry and leads to the most aggravated, angry comments. The expectation of equal opportunity fuels a profound sense of injustice when the outcome is brutally unequal.
That makes so much sense. In a rigid hierarchy, you accept your place. But when you're told it's a meritocracy and you don't win, you don't blame the system.
You blame the person who won.
And this whole dynamic prevents the system from ever finding peace or closure.
Right. Unlike a traditional competition like American Idol or the Super Bowl, the social web avoids what Girard called the scapegoat mechanism.
The scapegoat mechanism.
Yeah.
That's where you ritually eliminate the losers to unify the remaining group.
Exactly. On American Idol, you vote someone off. That act of elimination cleanses the system of some of its mimetic rivalry, and the community of viewers comes together around the survivors. It's a temporary release valve.
But the social web has no release valve.
None. The constant influx of new content, the ambiguity of the rules, the fact that the competition never ends, it means conflict is constantly being generated. And so the primary cultural form of a platform like YouTube is not community. It is conflict and unresolved rivalry. The machine needs it that way because conflict is engagement.
So if the machine is designed for this kind of endless competition, what does that do to us, to our identities, to our psychology? This is where we get into the pathologies that the architecture reinforces.
It starts with a very simple, empirically proven fact. Across all these networks, YouTube, Dig, you name it, there's a clear positive correlation between how much content you produce, your productivity, and how much attention you get.
The more you post, the more popular you become.
Which then creates a powerful, circular, self-reinforcing loop. Getting more popular gets you more attention, which then incentivizes you to produce even more, which makes you more popular.
It sounds like a structural addiction.
That's a very good way to put it. And this spiral is driven by something the sources call pseudo-narcissistic desire.
Pseudo-narcissistic. Why the pseudo?
Because it might not start as a clinical personality disorder, it becomes a structural requirement of the platform. The creator starts to copy the attention that's being directed at them. They internalize that external validation.
And it becomes self-attention, self-desire.
Precisely. They're not necessarily producing content because they have this deep, intrinsic love for themselves. They're producing it because they're addicted to seeing the reflection of the audience's desire for them. Their entire effort is aimed at maintaining that feeling.
This fundamentally changes your identity, doesn't
Yeah.
it? It makes the performance of identity into a survival mechanism. It's almost a perfect illustration of what critics like Christopher Lasch called the culture of narcissism decades ago. But now it's amplified by technology.
It is. It shows that the network isn't made up of autonomous individuals making free choices. The network's very structure is defined in terms of desire, this aspirational copying of the model. That coffee shop rebel is the ultimate performer of the pseudo-narcissism.
And for every successful pseudo-narcissist, for every influencer, there has to be a shadow, a structural opposite.
There does. And that's where we find the correlate. Pseudo-masochism and envy. This is the state of the follower, the influenced.
Because the model's superiority is so visible, it's quantified in likes and views and follower counts.
And that visible superiority implies the inferiority of the follower. The follower is constantly observing and trying to emulate what they perceive as the model's superior existence. Their freedom, their success, their autonomy.
So envy becomes the glue that holds the network together. It's the digital tie binding the follower to the model.
It's the desire to possess what the model has. The attention, the status, that seems inseparable from them as a person. And this is happening at an unprecedented scale.
What does the research say about this?
The studies are pretty stark. There's a strong positive correlation between passive following, just, mindlessly scrolling through a Facebook feed, and feelings of envy. People who use these platforms frequently report much higher levels of envy than occasional users.
And this isn't just some harmless emotion. It has real consequences.
Very real. The sources show that this envy, which is caused by all this unfavorable social comparison, is a direct mediator for depressive mental states.
So the path is clear.
Mm-hmm.
You scroll, you compare yourself to the optimized performances of others, you feel inferior, and that leads to depression. And the platform's design facilitates this every step of the way.
It's a tragedy written in code. The system needs this competitive visibility to work. But that very visibility generates widespread envy, which in turn leads to terrible psychological outcomes for the majority of people who are, by definition, not at the top.
Let's dig into that a bit more. The research points to a really interesting distinction between platforms. The link between general problematic social media use and narcissism can be kind of inconsistent.
Right.
But when you narrow it down specifically to problematic Facebook use, the correlation is incredibly strong. Why Facebook in particular?
It comes down to what the platform's architecture allows you to do. Its specific affordances. Facebook, by design, gives you an immense amount of control over your self-presentation.
Much more than, say, Twitter with its character limits or an anonymous forum.
Exactly. Facebook is the perfect stage for constructing an idealized version of yourself. It lets you carefully cultivate this positive self-image and, this is the crucial part, get immediate, frequent, and highly visible rewards for it. Likes, shares, positive comments.
It's the perfect feedback loop for someone with narcissistic tendencies.
It's tailor-made for it. It fulfills the needs of both the grandiose narcissist who wants admiration and the vulnerable narcissist who needs constant validation to prop up a fragile ego.
And this isn't just a one-way street, is it? The platform doesn't just attract narcissists.
No, the research suggests it's a spiral. Narcissistic traits influence the kind of content you post, which gets you the positive feedback you crave, which then reinforces and increases your narcissistic traits over time. The machine helps manufacture them.
So the platform truly becomes an engine for this culture of narcissism. It takes that individual need for self-enhancement and systematizes it, makes it profitable. It makes the performance of identity a core survival skill in a world that feels increasingly atomized.
So if the machine first creates these individual pathologies, the next phase is about how it scales that up to create collective polarization. And to understand that, we have to talk about the dominance of negative emotions online.
Why is it that outrage just seems to travel so much faster and further than anything positive?
It's a simple function of arousal and engagement. Study after study shows that high arousal emotions, anger, fear, anxiety, disgust, spread much more quickly and widely than low arousal emotions, even positive ones like joy or contentment.
So anger is just more contagious than happiness, digitally speaking.
It is. On the massive Chinese social network Weibo, for example, research found that anger propagated between users with far greater speed and correlation than joy or even sadness did.
Which means there's a clear negativity-activity correlation.
A very clear one. The more negative emotions are expressed in a space, the higher the overall activity level, the comments, the shares, the reactions.
So the platform's unspoken rule is basically, if you want to be seen, be angry.
That's the incentive structure. And it leads to something called bad reciprocity. The more we communicate, the more our communication tends to spiral into negativity because negative emotions are just easier to imitate and amplify than constructive ones.
And social media platforms are particularly good at amplifying this, aren't they? Better than old media.
Much better, because traditional media had institutional gatekeepers, editors, fact-checkers, ethical codes. Social media platforms are largely non-institutionalized. They grew up without that kind of oversight, which allows these high-arousal emotions to spread like wildfire.
And then the algorithms themselves, the systems that sort the content, they act as imitation amplifiers.
That's their job. They don't classify news or content based on its quality or its truthfulness. They classify it based on one metric: user engagement.
So if anger drives the most engagement, then anger becomes the definition of what's relevant.
And this is literally formalized in the code. If we look at the Facebook news feed algorithm, which is basically the blueprint for all of them, we can see exactly how it works.
Okay, so let's break that down. The visibility of something in your feed is determined by this nonlinear formula.
The key part of it, in simple terms, is that visibility is proportional to engagement squared. That little exponent, the nonlinear function, is the secret sauce.
What does that mean in practice? Why is squaring it so important?
It means the system doesn't just reward engagement, it rewards extreme engagement exponentially. So look, if a post gets 2 likes, its visibility score might be 4. Not a huge jump.
Okay.
But if a really divisive, anger-inducing post gets 10 likes, its visibility score skyrockets to 100. The algorithm is structurally biased toward content that elicits the strongest possible reaction.
And as we've established, that's usually negative emotion.
Usually. And the full formula is even more mimetic. It involves that triadic structure again. Your visibility is a function of your interest in a source, multiplied by the closeness of the friend who shared it. And closeness is defined by shared engagement.
So it's amplifying what my tribe already engages with. If my circle gets angry about something, the algorithm force feeds it to me and pushes everything else out.
It's an automatic imitation and identity generation machine. By rewarding only the highest engagement content within a group, it converges on a single fixed point of opinion. It actively works to eliminate diversity of thought because diversity is less engaging.
And that's how it accelerates polarization and tribalization.
It's the engine of it. And this is where we see that idea of Durkheimian enemy play out in the digital sphere. As our traditional social institutions, community groups, churches, even political parties weaken, people are left with this feeling of normlessness.
A sense of being adrift. Enemy.
Right. And the algorithm provides a very powerful, if artificial, solution. It gives you a tribe with very clear, very loud, high-arousal norms, usually defined by shared outrage.
This brings us to those terms we hear all the time: epistemic bubbles and echo chambers. They're often used interchangeably, but they're very different things.
And the distinction is absolutely crucial for understanding how this all works.
So what's an epistemic bubble?
An epistemic bubble is an information network where important sources are left out simply by omission. You just haven't been exposed to the other side. You're in a bubble.
So if you're in a bubble and someone pops it by showing you new information, you might actually be surprised and change your mind.
You might. It's a connectivity problem. An echo chamber is much more sinister. It's a social structure where outside voices are not just omitted, they are actively and systematically discredited.
So it's not about what you don't hear. It's about being taught to distrust anything you hear from the outside.
Exactly. It works by manipulating trust. The echo chamber teaches its members that all outside sources, the mainstream media, scientists, universities, the government, are corrupt, biased, and untrustworthy.
They're all part of the matrix that our guy in the coffee shop wants you to escape.
That's the core message of the echo chamber. And once they've discredited all external authorities, members become completely dependent on the information provided from within the chamber. This is how ideologies can harden and become immune to contrary evidence.
And this mechanism isn't politically specific, is it? It's a structure that can be used to amplify any ideology.
Any ideology at all. The structure itself is what matters, and it's incredibly effective at accelerating the dissolution of traditional epistemic authorities. It creates these powerful incentive structures that they reward ideological conformity over something like rational, nuanced discourse. The most certain, most outraged voice wins.
Okay, so we've seen how this mimetic machine creates rivalry and polarization online. But this doesn't just stay on the screen, does it? It bleeds out into the real world.
It absolutely does. This is the idea of mimesis migration. Digital symbols and behaviors go viral and then migrate into our physical spaces, creating new social micro-rituals.
And the case study for this is it's perfect. It's the Piñagate phenomenon.
It's a fantastic example. We're talking about the trend of placing a pineapple upside down a reveille in your supermarket shopping cart to signal that you're available for flirting.
And this started as just a joke online, right? On a platform like X?
Completely. It was a meme. But its migration into the physical world is a perfect example of large-scale mimetic desire. The meme goes viral not because it's intrinsically brilliant, but because people copy the behavior of sharing and reacting to it. This creates a collective desire to be in on the joke, to belong.
So the pineapple stops being a fruit and becomes a symbol. A meme that gains meaning through mass imitation.
And when you take that symbol and perform the action in a physical space like a supermarket, you're turning a mundane act shopping into a social micro-ritual.
You're transforming the space.
You are. And that gives the participants this powerful feeling of inclusion. You're driven to copy the behavior because you desire to be part of the group that understands the signal. You're turning a sterile commercial zone into a stage for social interaction.
It's interesting that the analysis of Piñagate showed it was driven by positive emotions, like curiosity and joy. That's a bit of a change from all the negativity we've been talking about.
It is, and that positive sentiment is why it spread so fast initially online. But the physical replication, the migration, was driven by a few key things. The disruptive creativity of it, the simple, memorable image of an upside-down pineapple, its novelty, and its clear symbolic appeal. It's easy and fun to copy.
This really shows how we now live in a hybrid space. The digital world provides the script, and the physical world becomes the stage.
The symbols migrate seamlessly. They reinforce a digital tribe's identity in an everyday physical environment.
And it creates this strange kind of public intimacy.
That's a great term for it. The symbol allows you to signal your accessibility in a public space, to show you're part of a shared secret while still being an individual going about your day. It's a secret handshake performed out in the open.
The mimetic machine is the catalyst. The digital platform models the behavior and the desire for inclusion, and then the supermarket becomes the stage where that ritual solidifies the group identity.
And what's really striking about it is how easily and quickly we conform. Even if the ideology is just a joke about flirting, the speed and scale of the conformity, the fact that everyone instantly knows the script, is a pretty potent indicator of how fast a collective identity can be formed and deployed by these platforms.
It shows that the same structures of imitation that tell us how to perform rebellion also tell us how to flirt. The invisible script covers everything. #tag outro. So we started this deep dive with that image of the rebel in the coffee shop, so convinced of his own uniqueness, but completely unaware that he was just performing a script.
And I think we've seen now in detail how that script gets written, distributed, and performed.
What we think is this vibrant world of things expression is actually a system of engineered competition. The whole architecture of the social web, this mimetic machine, it's designed to extract value from our rivalry more than our cooperation.
It monetizes our desire for that scarce resource attention. It rewards pseudo-narcissism. It fuels mass envy in the followers. And most critically, it actively amplifies negative emotions.
Because those high-arousal emotions generate the nonlinear engagement that the algorithms need to see.
And those algorithms, in turn, are designed to accelerate polarization. They don't want diversity, they want conformity because conformity is more engaging. They are sophisticated mediators that ensure what feels like free thought is actually highly calibrated by these invisible forces.
Forces that prioritize imitation and conflict above everything else. Our search for connection gets hijacked by this compulsion to perform a role in a very profitable, very competitive play.
The script is running, the architecture is in place, and maybe the real question isn't whether we're in the matrix anymore. Maybe it's why we seem so eager to play the part of the rebel that it wrote for us.